Hello and welcome to the Grumpy Sound Guy Show. I am your host, Mr. J.R. Everhart from CLP Audio and Staging. This week we are going to talk about things I wish I knew before I got into the business. Now, we just launched a short form series on this same subject on Monday. So you may hear some things repeated if you follow both sides of my content. All my marketing information tells me that I have a radically different audience with long form than I do with the short form stuff, so that I should be repeating some of these subjects for you long form guys and for my long form audience. So here we are. That's what today's subject is going to be. Stick around and we're going to dive right into it, okay? You're going to really dig what I got to say today, because I'm going to get brutally honest about some things about the business. So you don't want to miss a second of today's show. Hey guys, if I could just have a moment of your time to talk to you about this channel. 49.8% of you guys watching this right now is not subscribed to this channel. Will you please hit that subscription button? It doesn't cost anything to subscribe to the channel on the public side here. And then that gives us tools and resources and for my marketing team to be able to do what we need to do to get this content out to people who really enjoy this sort of thing. The other thing is, if you're super digging this and you'd like a deeper look into my world, then subscribe to the paid side of the YouTube channel. You can join for about the cost of a cup of coffee a month, you know, and then I do vlogs over there. I post content that never goes public, and I let you into my world. I let you into the CLP audio world, and I let you see what our day-to-day life looks like. Love you guys. Thank you for the support. Hello and welcome back. Welcome back. So, things I wish I knew before I got into the production business. And the best place to start is with the honest to God, brutal truth of working in the production business. And that is, if you're going to get into the production business looking to get rich or even be moderately wealthy, this probably isn't the business for you. You need to understand that it's a very physical job. And I mean, I'm really just giving you like this nutshell stuff right out of the gate so that you young guys that never make it past 5 minutes in the video can get the information that you need. If you stick around, I will gladly elaborate on these things as the video progresses. But yeah, I just wanted to open the video with just some real serious points here. If I had to do it all over again, I'm 52 years old. You don't realize the price that you've paid with your body, with your time, with your family, because if you work in a production business, you work every weekend and every holiday. You miss all those 4th of July family get-togethers. You miss a lot of birthday parties with your kids, or their birthday may be on Saturday and you got to celebrate it on Monday or Tuesday. Most kids are okay with that, but you miss baseball games, you miss ballet recitals, you miss all kinds of school stuff because you're working. You know, if you got kids that are in marching band and are out marching at every Friday night game and doing Saturday competitions, guess what? You're working. There's a high price to be paid to work in this business full time, you know, and I'm talking about full-time employment. If you want to go get a really good paying day job, I highly recommend that, and just be a weekend warrior and do this once or twice a month. That's a whole different scenario. Those are not the guys I'm talking to. I'm talking about guys that want to make a living in this business. The average profit margin is about 25 to 30%. You know, that's after you pay labor. I just went through, I was looking at third quarter numbers, you know, kind of speculating because I pretty much got my calendar dialed in that far out and that sort of thing. And I'm well over a third of what I make just goes out in labor. Now, I got a great group of guys that work for me. They're talented. They can do what they need to do with minimal supervision. I'm very blessed. I'm not complaining about those guys. Those guys are a blessing to my company, and I'm glad that they're part of the CLP Audio family. And I do my best to try and take care of them and to try to be a decent boss. I try not to have a toxic work environment. Believe me, I've been through that, and that has all its own challenges. Excuse me. And I could probably do a whole nother video just on that, not creating a toxic work environment, which is super hard when you're the guy who is responsible for everything, and when your crew screws up, you're kind of getting hit. When the promoter's not happy, you're getting hit. When gear doesn't want to work, you're getting hit. When the bands have egos and are hard to work with, you're getting hit. The guy that's running the show, if you're working for a guy like me, please have some grace and mercy, because we got a lot on our shoulders here, and really not laughing all the way to the bank here. Let me just be honest with you. You know, there's gigs where I make out really well, and that makes up for a lot of the gigs that I just do barely okay on and can barely show a measurable profit margin, you know. So you have to kind of spread all that stuff out and look at it as a whole, you know, because you have to do the lower budget stuff to fill in the calendar and keep people working, as well as the legit level budget stuff. And one hand kind of washes the other, you know, in that situation. So yeah, if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have went in the Marine Corps, to be perfectly honest with you. When I came out of high school, I was eligible for my senior year. I was eligible for several different music scholarships as a drummer and that sort of thing. My high school drum instructor had played in the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps and had kind of walked me through some audition stuff with those guys and all that sort of thing. And that's really the only regret I have in my life, is I probably should have just went into the Marine Corps, suffered through boot camp, and then played drums the rest of my life and had a beautiful retirement and, you know, medical benefits and all those kind of things. I know, I mean, at least in my world, I don't hear people talk about military recruitment much. We're a military family. I have a brother who was in the Marine Corps, retired from the Marine Corps, and that sort of thing. But dude, that is not a bad place to start. If you're coming out of high school, even if you just go in for 3 or 5 years or something, man, it sets you up for free health care the rest of your life. And let me tell you, that's important, especially in this day and age where we're plagued with, it seems like, you know, staring at goldfish and give you, you know, mustache cancer or something these days. I mean, it's insane. You need health insurance is the thing I'm saying. And you're young, and you think that you know, oh, it's something I'll deal with later in life and blah, 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 and this, that, and bull butter. I've seen guys in their mid-20s get hurt on the job as a subcontractor, and their health responsibilities are their own deal when they're a subcontractor. You know, those are all things I didn't realize when I was a subcontractor and I was coming in this business, and when I spent years and years as a freelance, you know, engineer and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know that, man. I probably would have done something else. I could have easily went to college and got just a generic business degree or something and went to work somewhere or for the government or something like that. I live 90 minutes west of DC, Washington, DC. So we have a lot of government work, you know, in our area. And a lot of the telecommute, you know, stuff is setting up in my area this far west of DC. I could be doing that kind of stuff and then playing music on the weekends, or just, you know, toting around a little club rig or something on the weekends and enjoying life, you know. Now, don't get me wrong, because a lot of this stuff that I'm sharing today is going to kind of make you feel like, well, JR, if this is how you feel, then why are you doing this? You know, then it sounds like you're miserable, dude. No, I'm not miserable. I'm just telling you the truth. Look, my content is centered around, if you haven't figured it out by now, telling the truth, talking about the elephant in the room, you know, bringing honest, you know, real world experience to the table in my content. There's so many other channels that will set and teach you how to mix and talk about gear all day long, and you'll find 6 different reviews on the same piece of gear, and every one of them will say something different. That's not really my bag, you know what I'm saying? My bag is just sharing with you what I have learned in my 35, 37 years in this business, and being just gut level honest with you about it. And that's really the honest to God truth. The thing is, and here's the crazy thing, is you chase the carrot and you chase the carrot and you chase the carrot in this business, and it's always like, well, if I can get to this level, then everything will be okay. And then you get to that level and realize, okay, now I need to buy all this gear to operate on this level, because that's what everybody else in this level is doing. It's a constant money pit. You will never get past spending money in this. It just is what it is. I'm very grateful for the business I have. I'm very blessed. You have a good reputation. I'm one of the most in-demand, sound engineers and production houses, middle market production houses in the Mid-Atlantic. Look, dude, I'm grateful. I complain about it all the time, but there's nothing I would rather do in my life than to do what I do all the time. I wish the profit margins were a little better, and believe me, I'm scratching my head and looking at the calculator regularly, trying to, tighten the reins and trying to, make this in a way to where you can actually, have something in life and not just live from paycheck to paycheck. But I mean, I could go work in a factory and live paycheck to paycheck, you know what I'm saying? And put in 36 or 40 hours a week and be done with it, instead of putting in 36 or 40 hours in 3 days. You know what I'm saying? And killing myself and, sleeping 2 hours a night, and things like that and all that sort of stuff. Like, you gotta really love this business to endure everything that it takes. But, that carrot is always swinging in front of you, and you always feel like, well, if I can just get to this next level, or if I could just get these clients, then things will get better, and then I'll have steady income. And you know what? Some of us, and I have seen it already in some of the comment sections of the short form videos about this, is that some guys get super lucky. They'll land a government contract where they're supplying audio for all their corporate stuff, and may do that for 20 some years. I got one follower, I think he said he did that for 22 years. Or you get super lucky and become the lead sound engineer at a big super church somewhere, where you can actually make decent money, and maybe turn 70, 80 grand a year or something like that, because that's really what the average middle class person should be making at a bare minimum to try and survive in today's economic climate. Maybe you land a house gig like that. The problem with house gigs is, if it's a nightclub, nightclubs come and go. Sometimes they last 20, 30 years. Here in the last 10 years, you don't even have enough time for me to tell you how many nightclubs have come with big plans and big vision and lasted a year or 3 and then closed down and folded up shop. So if you're someone, I turn down house gigs all the time because of that reason. Now, church house gigs tend to be a little bit more stable, but the problem with the church is they poor mouth everything, and they never have money for tech when they have money for everything else. You know what I'm saying? So that can be frustrating. There's a lot of social dynamics to deal with in church that you don't deal with in nightclubs. So yeah, it's kind of like pick your poison, man. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know any of that stuff, coming into this business. I just came in with a love and a passion for music. I had been a touring drummer, and I was like, there's 1,000 good drummers out there, but there's not 1,000 good sound engineers, at least in my area. So I, started paying attention to those guys and hanging out with the road crew and buddying up with the sound engineers that were in my life. And I got very lucky to work with really good, solid, 2 or 3 really good, solid sound engineers early in my career. And that laid the foundation for what would be the rest of my career in this business. But man, count the cost, because it's a lot, dude. It really is. It's a lot. And if you're not prepared for that, it's hard on relationships. I've been divorced 3 times. Now the music business hasn't been the sole reason for those divorces, but my desire to want to be in the music business, or my working in the music business, definitely played a role in all those divorces. My 3rd divorce, it definitely was a big role in that one. She was just sick and tired of being in clubs, and she was sick and tired of me being in clubs, and she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I can't say that I blame her. I'm not even mad at her about it. It's just what it is. This business is not for the faint of heart. You know what I'm saying? It's just not, dude. It really isn't. You got to be super careful. if you're in a relationship and you're on the road all the time and that sort of stuff, and it seems like the younger you are, the more of a challenge that is, because especially for guys, because it's hard to say no, to loose women on the road. I'm not judging you. I did my time in that prison just like everybody else. Usually the older you get, you're just trying to survive the day. You're trying to get through the day, get back to the hotel, take a shower, and sleep as much as what your schedule will allow you to sleep, or crawl back on the bus, get in your bunk, and close the curtain and get away from everybody. That just is kind of where we are when we get older. We have different priorities. The older you get and the more you mature emotionally, the more you mature physically. I can tell you right now, I was just joking around with my daughter yesterday. We went out to lunch together, and I was talking about, recovering from the weekend, and I don't even drink. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke cigarettes, none of that stuff. And it takes me a day or two of recovery after working a 3 to 4 day weekend. It could just be a couple local gigs and I'm still tired and wore out. It's just, the older you get, the harder it is on you, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that I was destroying my back all those years. I'm a big guy, I'm 6'2", I'm 340 pounds, I'm down 10 pounds, thank you very much. My keto diet is slowly starting to work. So I'm a big, strong guy, and I'm used to manhandling everything and picking things up and throwing it around, and it just is what it is, and it has taken a toll after 30 some years of that, dude. It's a blue collar job, man. And that's the thing that I run into with young guys coming out of school. They're brainwashed into this romantic idea that now that they have a degree in recorded arts or pro audio or whatever goofy title they want to give you in college, they think you're going to just have this white glove job, mixing the Foo Fighters the rest of your life and never have to push a case, never have to work in the rain. Yeah, I had no idea I would be working in the rain as much as what I do when I got in this business. In my mind, I don't know. I was young and green and dumb and didn't know what was what. So, I was just along for the ride and doing whatever it took. And we worked in the rain, when I first got in this business. But we also did a lot of indoor stuff, Now, having the mobile stage as part of our business, framework, we set that stage up and tear it down in the rain a lot. It's nuts. So, thankfully it's summertime. It's not like December and it's 30 degrees and raining. No, it's usually, 90 degrees and raining, and the rain actually feels good. It's not the end of the world. We work our way through it. But, there's hardships in this business that you just don't see when all you're thinking about is wanting to be in the production business, wanting to work in the music business full time, wanting to be part of that conversation, wanting to be respected. I know guys that have walked away from good money just because they wanted a more respectable, position with a more respectable company or a more respectable, being a more respectable job environment, more corporate level stuff and that sort of thing, or working for a pro touring company. And dude, all those things have huge pitfalls. Two very close personal friends of mine that I love with all my heart own one of the biggest pro touring companies in the Mid-Atlantic, and their employee roster is a revolving door. This business chews people up, young people, chews young people up and spits it out. It's not for the faint of heart. And I can't begin to even tell you how many people that I've seen go to 4-year university to be in the production business and work in the production business for 1 to 3 years and say, screw this, dude, and then end up going and getting a job for what their minor was, business or computer programming or cybersecurity or something like that, and make all the money they want to make, put a little stick rig together and go out and run sound for their local band, twice a month, and they're perfectly happy and, building a solid life and future for their family. And then that brings in the whole family thing, dude. I know I talked about missing family events earlier and how this is hard on your relationships and stuff, but it's hard on your kids too, dude. And from one perspective of it, you're teaching your kids that, work is necessary, that you don't always get what you want in this world. There's a lot of valuable lessons to be taught with a working father who's going all the time, Now that kid may not understand that, and maybe you need a better work-home life balance, but it is definitely part of the equation of what we do. It just is. My kids could sit here and tell you, that when I got them every other weekend, I was either taking them to a gig that was an all ages gig, outdoor, day festival kind of thing or something, with the band that I was playing drums in at the time, or something. They spent a lot of time. I was working as a tech director in a church during those years. They spent a lot of time in the rec room at the church while I was doing production stuff in the sanctuary. They have stories like that for days, you know. But I mean, I always tried to be the best father I can be. We always tried to make up for it on Monday and Tuesday, and things like that, and do the best we could do, with the resources we have to do it with. But dude, this is not a business for sissies. You better have your man pants on or your girl pants on. You know what I'm saying? Your woman pants on. I mean, because it will kick you in the teeth and hold you down under the water of adversity until you drown if you don't keep your head screwed on right. I mean, everybody's going to have a breakdown at some point. I still have breakdowns, believe it or not. There's still times where I am so inundated with stress and anxiety from trying to manage, two crews of guys and gear going here and gear going there, and all the clients, blowing me up. And then, prospective clients are always in the middle of all that, asking, hey, when can we sit down and have a meeting? And I'm like looking at my calendar, and I'm booked every day, and got to try to, find room in my schedule to go sit down and make them feel like they have my undivided attention and that they have me present, for their needs, and that sort of thing. Dude, that's tough. And then the other thing that I figured out early on but didn't really realize when I got into this business was you need to have multiple streams of income. So in my life, not just now, but even when I was doing mainly freelance stuff, I was always buying and selling equipment, buy something at a pawn shop for $100, sell it on eBay or reverb.com for $150 or $200 or whatever you can get out of it, post it up on Facebook Marketplace and sell it. And then you have all the nightmare idiot clients that are trying to ask you 1,000 questions about your gear in that whole scenario. So that can be a lot. But I was always buying and selling gear there for a long time. Early on, I was teaching drum lessons quite a bit. I haven't done that in a couple decades, but I remember when I first got into this full time, I definitely had to teach drum lessons. So I was doing that, playing in a band. I played in 2 bands, had a small club system that I was renting out. I was paid staff, tech director at a church at the time. Just anything and everything, man. I even drove a concrete truck for a while when my kids were young, just to try to have some kind of stability financially, to make things work the best they could do. I come from a very blue collar family. My father was a diesel mechanic. My mother was a cook, a commercial cook. I'm 11 of 12 kids in my family, and we're blue collar people. We're like salt of the earth kind of people, meat and potatoes guys. You know what I mean? So I'm not afraid to, like when COVID happened, I went back and drove a truck for a year and a half. You got to do whatever you got to do. I have a Class A CDL. It has saved my rear end more times than I can count. I have a buddy of mine in the business who owns his own semi, and he pulls freight for Amazon Prime, or whatever. During the week, he'll work 2 or 3 days during the week doing that, and then work the rest of the time, doing production stuff. In the wintertime, he's always got income because of that, and it's good to have a backup plan. It's good to have multiple streams of income working in your life. There's no shame in not being full-time. I'm full-time and do 180, 200 shows a year, and I'm here to tell you right now, I'm not getting rich. I got some nice things, but guess what? As quick as that money comes in, it goes out to pay for those nice things, And I mean nice things as far as business stuff is concerned. I don't have like a boat, what I'm saying? I have an old ATV that my daughter actually bought that she keeps here. We use to do work around the property here and plow snow in the winter and stuff. And I need to get it up in the shop right now and do a brake job all the way around it and some suspension work to it. And it's probably 15 years old, So I mean, I'm not living high on the hog here, I mean, we're making enough money to live the life we want to live for the most part. But there's dry times, dude. There's dry times like the winter time. You get past Christmas and things calm down, January, February, and March. Dude, I can tell you this, I'm not eating out 3 times a week, 4 times a week like I do now. We're going to the grocery store and buying stuff, and we're battening the hatches and riding it out. I mean, even though I'm still taking festival deposits during that time, and that kind of helps keep the bills paid and keeps the lights on and that sort of thing, dude, it's still a struggle. Then you get in the summer months and you're making plenty of money, but as soon as you get money in the bank, something always rears its ugly head that you have to go and spend that money on. Usually gear repairs, stuff like that. I just dropped off a bunch of merch just for CLP Audio Crew and stuff. And between buying the shirts and stuff myself to get the style shirts that I want to use, and having it screen printed and hats embroidered and that sort of stuff, I'm probably $1,200-$1,300 into that deal. And it was like 50 shirts and 20 hats and 30 cooling hand towels. We're getting our logo screen printed on. What was it? And 4 skull caps that are going to be embroidered. I got some guys that like those skull cap things in the wintertime. And I'm not trying to like sell merch to the public. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just for my guys. Now, that little nest egg of merch will probably last me for 2 years, but still, it's just another thing that has to be done. Last week, I spent $800 in getting a pair of speakers, fixed, and then put new horns in them 725s that I took out this past weekend. I'm sorry, I was talking about that on the member side video this week, but yeah, we redone and went through some 725s that we're going to start using at Camden Yards because some of these band engineers are just destroying my 715. So we're going to kind of give them a little bit more muscle down there, even though it's totally unnecessary. But we're going to give them a little muscle down there in hopes that they will, not be destroying my gear so much. That's been a great contract with the Orioles. It pays well. But it's high maintenance like everything else. Like I said, I got $1,600 just in repairing speakers in the last 2 years there. I don't even know how much money in gear maintenance, replacing wheels. We got to push gear a city block on the loadout, so I want everything to have nice fresh wheels on it and that sort of thing. And then you show up at a dock bar somewhere where someone didn't think about what it was going to be to load in, and you got to drag those brand new wheels through sand. It's just 2 months later, those wheels are shot. And it only takes one time in the sand for that to happen. You can blow them off and spray them out and lubricate them and do all the things you want to do. The damage is done, dude. You're gonna have issues with that. It's $100 per box or rack to put quality wheels on this stuff. So everything I have is on wheels. So that's $100 per set for every sub. That's $100 for every rack. It's $100 for every cable trunk. I mean, it adds up quick, dude. Don't even get me started on like liability insurance and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, if you're a freelancer, and I have this coming up, I think later in the week in the short form stuff, but if you're a freelancer, you should have liability insurance. If you're a business, quote unquote, you should have liability insurance. You can get $1 million or $2 million worth of liability insurance from nextinsurance.com for like $20, $30 a month or something. It's crazy cheap for just general liability. Now, the stuff that I have to get is much more specific because I have inland marine insurance on the equipment. I got extra insurance because of the stage, and I'm carrying about, $2 or $3 million worth of insurance altogether, maybe 4 altogether. But yeah, even if you're just a freelance guy, yeah, $20 a month gives you peace of mind, dude. If something goes down, or God forbid, something catastrophic happens on your dime, you're covered, dude. You're covered. You're talking about $240 a year. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on, man. I didn't know all that stuff when I got into business. No one sat me down and told me any of that. The guys that I learned the business from were great at teaching me the technical side of it. No one ever taught me any of the business side of this. I've had to figure it out on my own. Marketing is another thing. I paid a marketing firm for like the last, 2.5, 3 years or whatever to help me out, to help get COP Audio in a better place online, to get the Grumpy Sound Guy in a better place online. We've since parted ways here just recently. And now I'm in charge of that sort of stuff because it's kind of, easy to maintain at this stage of the game, for the most part, but that all has a price tag attached to it. That all takes up, my time. I could go down here to my computer right now and burn 5 or 6 hours working on the website or working on my Google ads, search engine optimization, marketing stuff, trying to brainstorm stuff for new Grumpy Sound Guy content, trying to get content posted in all the right places, posting it correctly. Like, I didn't know any of that stuff, man. No one ever told me how to do any of that. And believe me, I've had to learn some of these lessons the hard way. I've had to learn most of my business lessons the hard way. But, here I am. What am I going to do at this stage of the game? This is what I've spent most of my life doing. I'm not going to go back and drive a truck for a living. I mean, I may do that part-time or something here or there, but it's not something I'm passionate about. I'm still passionate about doing production work. You just got to count the cost. You just have to be sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into. When young guys come to me interning or wanting to learn the business from me, one of the first conversations we have is, hey man, I'm glad that you're interested in this. I'm glad that this is something that you see yourself doing, but make sure you understand what this entails. This is what the long game looks like in this business. Look at me. I'm 52. I have no retirement put away. I just have basic, decent health insurance thanks to the Affordable Care Act. I have a really good accountant, that helps me write off stuff so I'm not paying in Mongo taxes every year and stuff like that. Of course, we spend a lot of money in this business. You know what I'm saying? Last year was a slow year for me. And I think I still spent 50 grand, 60 grand or something last year. And I'm just a small little one-man company. And I didn't make any huge purchases last year. I made a couple little purchases, and then everything else was just maintenance stuff. Everything from, I have 3 logoed vehicles in my fleet that all need, preventive maintenance stuff done, oil changes, brakes, all that sort of thing. I need to tear the wheels off of the stage right now and check the electric brakes in it because I haven't done that and I've had it for 2 years and it's due, So that means I need to dedicate a day to come up here. Thankfully, I have the skills to do that myself, but I have to dedicate a day to come up here and do that and keep things operating in a safe manner. I spend no less than, I don't even know, dude, 60, 80, 100 hours a year just doing maintenance to the stage, keeping the stage where it needs to be, and staying on top of that, making sure that it's safe to do all the things that we want it to do. Because I don't want to find out that something needs maintenance on the job when it falls or it breaks or it kills somebody. No one taught me any of that stuff. I've had to learn all that as I went along. Thankfully, I have a blue-collar mechanical skill set at my disposal to do a lot of the maintenance stuff myself. Otherwise, I don't even know what I'd do if I had to pay someone to do all this. But there's it takes a toll on your body and it takes a toll on your schedule, your time. When I should be online really cultivating more of this content or cultivating clients, and that sort of thing. I'm getting ready to roll out a big marketing thing for fall festivals. I am right now booking, October, November fall festivals, all the way up into Thanksgiving. So there needs to be a marketing campaign attached to that, and Google ads and, boosted ads on Facebook and ads here on YouTube and all that kind of I never knew any of that stuff. But if you're going to be successful in this business, you got to do it. And again, and I know I keep repeating myself here, but statistically, you don't hear it the first 2 times. So that's why I always say it at least 3 times. I am very grateful for the business that I have, and I'm very grateful for what my life looks like. But I'll be honest, there's just a lot of times where I'm looking at my bank account and taking an inventory of what my body feels like. And I'm thinking, man, this should really be paying me more for the toll that it's taking on my body. In 10 years, when I'm 62, I'm like, I don't know what that's even going to look like, you know. And all you older cats that watch my content in your 70s and 80s or whatever, you know, you always laugh at that or whatever. And I understand what you're saying. And I hope someday I'm where you're at and as healthy as you are, still working in this business or doing what you want to do for a living and not in a wheelchair or something. But, you know, I know guys that worked in this business into their mid 50s and ended up on a walker or literally in a wheelchair, you know, due to back issues, knees. You know, I just had my second knee operation this past December. You know, now I'm fighting arthritis in my knees and in my joints, you know, at 52. Like, that's insane. I really thought that I would at least make it to my late 50s, early 60s before my body would start falling apart. It started falling apart in my late 30s, early 40s. That's the toll this business takes on your body. When you work hard, you break your body. It is what it is. When you roll up on a gig and you got to push gear, you know, 300 yards to get to the stage through shag carpet and up over, you know, steps and all kinds of, and up ramps and like, dude, the whole thing, all the stuff, you know, it takes a toll on your body. So I'm saying all this to say this, and this is how I'm going to wrap this up and I'm going to conclude this video. First, count the cost, and second, inventory your quality of life. Okay? What does your quality of life look like? You know, if you have a good quality of life and you're happy and you're making enough money to be able to live decent, my house is paid for. That's what really allots a lot of my ability to do what I do, because I'm not paying a $1,500 a month house payment. And I am right now, this year has really been about focusing on paying down debt as much as we can. And we're doing really well with that, you know. But be prepared for all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Be prepared, man. Because if you're not, this business has a way of beating the love for this business clean out of you. And you won't want to go to a concert. You won't want to look at a piece of sound equipment. None of that stuff. Now, there's all kinds of ways to make money without killing yourself too awful much in this business, but they're not the glorious jobs. You know, I know guys doing karaoke and doing wedding DJ stuff that are absolutely killing. They're making as much money as I am and have way less inventory. Now, they have a whole lot of drama to deal with, you know, with the bridezillas and, you know, the midweek drunks that come into these karaoke situations and all that kind of stuff and everything, but they're doing okay. You know, I know guys that are plugged into the right business circle, and they're doing mainly corporate stuff and working out of the back of a RAV4 or, you know, a full-size SUV or something, can get all their gear in that and fit into a parking garage in downtown DC, no problem, you know, all those kind of things, and killing it. But those guys are the minority in this business from what I have seen in my life, you know. I've had some pretty cool gigs where I did pretty well. At the end of the day, wasn't making much less than what I'm making now. The last house gig I did, I think when it's all done and over with, I'm making about, I don't know, 30 grand more a year now than what I did when I had that house gig. But when I had that house gig, I had almost no stress. I knew what it was every week, same system. All I was doing was putting out mic stands, cables, and DIs every week. Didn't set up front of house or monitors. It was already in place every week. It was, for the most part, pretty fluid. It was what it was, dude, you know? So if you can get lucky enough to get into something like that and be satisfied with that, something to be said for that. Something to be said for that. I tell people all the time, whatever you do, don't start a production company, because that's where the money pit starts. You know, everybody should really own a small little stick rig, like, you know, a set of, you know, K12s and a pair of single 18 subs, just to be able to do, you know, weddings and corporate events and things like that. You know, everybody should have at least that and some kind of comparable 32 channel mixer. Other than that, when you start getting into, you know, buying enclosed trailers and box trucks, and, you know, now I'm into staging, which has been a blessing. Staging has been a huge blessing and has been the best business decision I've made in a very long time, but it has come at a price. You know, insurance is expensive for it. You know, there's a lot of liability with doing staging because you're lifting stuff up into the air. And anytime you're flying stuff, and you're flying lighting, you're flying in front of house, anytime you're doing that stuff, there's a risk involved in that. There just is. You know, so that creates more stress and more anxiety, and you just got to really be on top of your game all the time. So yeah, so that's kind of a whole boatload of things I wish I would have known before I got into business. Now here's the reality of all that. Had somebody told me that when I was, 22 years old, I probably would have laughed at him and been like, yeah, old timer, maybe that's how it worked out for you, but it's going to be different for me. I remember being that guy. No one ever had these specific conversations with me, but I can remember guys talking about the toll it's had on their body and that sort of thing. And me just being young and dumb and feeling invincible, like, no, that's not going to be me. I'll never be that guy. I'll never be this, and, whatever. And it's like, here I am. I mean, on the flip side of all this, I've had a wonderful life. My quality of life has been pretty good. I've rubbed shoulders with a lot of big name artists. I have made a lot of really good lifelong friends in this business. There's been a lot of positive things that you can't count in your bank account that has come from this. I get a lot of really good fringe benefits. When I vacation and go to the beach, I put up a post that I'm in town, and usually my inbox blows up. Hey dude, we're playing here tonight, come on out, I'll put you on the list. There are fringe benefits to working in this business. So there is some glory, to it. Not a lot, but there is some glory to it. That has some value, I'm not saying that it doesn't, but count the cost, dude. Count the cost, be prepared for hardship, be prepared, have a plan B. There's no shame in having a day gig. Especially if you can get a good day gig, like a government job or a state job or something that's not going anywhere, that has a lot of paid time off, so you have a flexible schedule and things like that. All that stuff means something, dude. It really does in the big scheme of things. And maybe this is your retirement. Maybe this is what you wanted to do for retirement. I know some guys like that. I know some guys that are in their late 50s, early 60s that are just getting into this full time because they just retired from the government. And now they got money to burn, and now they have all the free time in the world, and they want to go out and be part of the music scene like they've always wanted to do their entire life. I can't tell you how many praise and worship teams I have seen who ended up being empty nesters and starting a classic rock band or some kind of club band and going out and making a few bucks and having fun on the weekends in the nightclubs. Happens all the time. I see it happening all the time. So a lot of people are late bloomers. A lot of people get into this later in life after they've taken the time to establish the things that are important in life first. I was so blinded by my passion to want to work in the production business that I just ignored all that, and now I'm to a point where it's like, I probably should have ignored some of that, I probably should have paid a little better attention to how things were going. The guy that works for me is one of my best friends and a really good bass player buddy of mine. We play in a band together and that sort of thing. And, we were talking the other day, and I'll leave you with this. I know I've done close like 3 times here, but just bear with me. Was talking about the house he used to own, and I'm like, that house always felt like it should have a garage on it. And I'm like, how come you never built a garage on your house? And he's like, because I've been out playing clubs every weekend. My entire life. He's 60, just turned 61. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I never was home long enough to build a garage onto my house. I was always going. I was always loading the truck up on Friday evening or Thursday evening. So when I got off work Friday evening, I could just jump in the truck and go to the gig and, play out all weekend. Play out Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then back to the grind on Monday morning, man. There was never any time to do a building project at my place. And we both just kind of laughed at that. I'm like, yeah, I 100% know exactly what you're talking about. Such is the life. Love you guys. See you next week.